You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 60. We're live on a Tuesday in the second week already of 2024. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here, tapped in with me on the show. Y'all make sure to get in the comments. Let me know how the audio sound. I want to make sure we're not slipping on the mic like we were a couple weeks ago. Hope everyone's had a great week as we're rolling into Wednesday. The College Football National Championship was last night, and Michigan undoubtedly proved they are the best team in the nation. Sorry we're a little late tonight. Had to handle some business before we got on the show, but there was no way episode 60 was not going to happen this evening. Before we get into the show, y'all please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. As always, y'all are going crazy for me on the channel. Was gone for a few weeks, and it seems like every video I'm putting out, you guys are just soaking it up. Of course, make sure to hit that bell as well so you never miss a post from the YouTube channel, no matter what type of content it is. And as always, the QR code there in the corner of the screen will give you every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL, hashtag the NFL with AJL. One of the most packed shows we've had in a while here on episode 60. Michigan wins the national championship. NFL Black Monday had some things that we had to talk about. CJ Stroud and Jordan Love in their first years as starters, full year starters, lead their team to the playoffs. Power ranking every playoff team, predicting the whole bracket, and some more here on the show. Let's go ahead and get this reaction for the college football playoff title game as Michigan wins their third national championship, the first one since 1997, with a 34-13 win over the Washington Huskies and Michael Penix. And realistically, this game was never close. You see from the first quarter, we've got Edwards with a couple of big runs. We got Blake Corum coming through with big runs as well. And Michigan showed that they were undoubtedly the best team in the country. They're going to be physical. They're going to tear you down. They were comfortable. They really played their brand of football in this game, and they didn't get uncomfortable at all. J.J. McCarthy was fine. The run game was fine. The defense was locked in. And like I said, before this game started, Michigan's going to play this way. They were even more physical than they were in the Alabama game. And Jim Harbaugh outcoached Kalen DeBoer. And I saw that coming. Jim Harbaugh's done this. We know he's successful in the NFL. Now he caps it off with Michigan, with the college football playoff national championship. The last 3 years, just to show Jim Harbaugh's resume, 40-3 overall. He's 26-1 in the Big Ten, 3 straight Big Ten titles, 3 straight college football playoff berths, and he's now 3-0 versus Ohio State and now a college football playoff national champion. And you got to give some credit to Washington as well, as much as they tried to do to bring this game closer and make it better than it actually did look on the scoreboard. And unfortunately on Monday night in the championship, their first 17 plays, speaking of Michigan here, 235 yards, 17 points. And then you look at the next 17 plays for Michigan, 77 yards and only 3 points. So Washington knew they had to turn it around from that first quarter where they were getting absolutely gashed in the run game. 305 total rushing yards out here from the Washington Huskies. And again, you could just see it in the first quarter. I was talking to some of my buddies as we were watching the game, messaging. I was like, it's going to be a very long night for Washington if they don't control this run, figure out how to stop this Jim Harbaugh style of football, and stop Edwards, stop Blake Corum. And you even see Michigan getting a little cocky as well, calling some run plays for J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy had a gorgeous run with about 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. They turn around, give him another designed run as well. Again, 305 rushing yards. They bring out their dual threat quarterback. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he comes in. They have some design runs for him. And it was kind of funny, right? It was like Jim called John and said, hey, I need some of those Lamar Jackson plays that you got because I got a guy over here that can kind of replicate his run style. Not saying that guy was Lamar Jackson. And y'all are going to roast me in the comments for not knowing his name, but I know the type of impact he had when Jim Harbaugh and Michigan called on him. There's a lot of talk about Michael Penix in this game as well, but I mean, straight up, Michael Penix was under pressure. He was inaccurate on big time throws. This is what happens when you play the best team and the best defense in the nation. And you see the overthrow to Rome Odunze as well. That really could have changed a lot. You saw Michael Penix being under pressure, missing reads. He made a few of those critical reads in this game, it could have snagged some momentum for Washington, but that was the problem. Washington never fully was able to tap in once they went down 14-3 and then 17-3. It just wasn't possible. They were on their heels. They were tired already. They knew that Edwards and Corum and that defense were going to give them hell all night, and that is exactly why Michigan was able to win their third national championship in their first one since 1997. And I told you guys, Blake Corum, he said last year there was unfinished business. He said it as soon as he got that trophy and kissed it. business finished. And I love that. I respect that. I appreciate that, knowing that he could have went to the league with the Blake Corum that he was last year and of previous years. Still had 25 rushing touchdowns this year as well. And I told you guys that Mike Sainristil as well, whenever a play needs to be made, Jim Harbaugh said it. Sainristil came out there, had the second interception on Michael Penix. I honestly thought he was going to take it to the house, and that was just really gonna put the cap on the game. Not that it wasn't already decided before that, but nonetheless, you see Sainristil coming in and just making that play and really harboring it all for Michigan right there. And we knew that that was the ball game. I said they were going to be difference makers, and they undoubtedly were. Hats off to Michigan. In this season, they beat Ohio State, they beat Penn State, they beat Alabama, and they beat Washington, all in the national championship. And you see they have to go through Ohio State, Bama, and Washington, their three toughest games of the year, back to back to back. And Jim Harbaugh and JJ McCarthy and everybody in Blue Nation cannot be happier about how this game played out. Just a few more takeaways here before I want to talk about what people are kind of saying about Michael Penix now that things are, going the way that they have after the national championship. Of course, Michael Penix had Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan. They torched Texas for 305 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Sugar Bowl. Michigan said that's not going to happen at all. Wolverine secondary was very impressive. They absolutely shined. 2 interceptions on Michael Penix. No Huskies receiver had over 100 yards receiving. In the first half, Washington had 0 completions of over 20 yards, which is the first time that it happened to the Huskies in 2 seasons. And you see JJ McCarthy, even when you turn around and look at Michigan's side of the ball as well. JJ McCarthy threw 2 pick sixes against TCU last year, which proved to really be that difference maker when they ended up losing in the semifinals. JJ McCarthy was 10 for 14, 140 yards, no risky throws, didn't risk turning the ball over, just had a couple of scrambles, and Michigan was able to run away with this football game. He had a 22-yard scramble on a 3rd and 8 to keep the drive alive, and I believe that was the run that I was mentioning earlier. You got to give credit to Washington's defense again. Like I said, 235 yards and 17 points on the first 17 plays, and after that, 77 yards and 3 points on the following 17 plays after that. Michigan, 84 yards for a touchdown. Then they followed it up with 10 points in their next 2 possessions. After they scored on the first 3 drives, it kind of looked like the national championship was going to be over again quickly by halftime, just like we disappointingly saw last year in the national championship. The Huskies didn't allow any of Michigan's next 7 drives after that to go beyond 41 yards. Unfortunately, it was too late for Washington in this one. And this was actually, I wanted the game to be better. I wanted Washington to win, but I knew Michigan was going to. They've been more tested. They have more experience. Jim Harbaugh over Kalen DeBoer. The only part I really liked was Washington's offense over Michigan's, because Michigan's offense was clearly outmatched. You would have thought coming into this game that Michigan was the premier offensive team and Washington had the defense based on the score that wasn't, that Washington had the offense that wasn't able to score. And you see they didn't even have defense as well to make this even slightly competitive. Will Johnson, Mason Graham, those guys can easily be future first-round picks, as they were very, very prominent in this game. You see Graham had consistent pressure on the interior, dominating some of Washington's guards as well. And the fact that Washington could bring pressure with just 4 rushers, that's always impressive. Not a lot of teams can do that in college or the NFL, so when you don't have to bring that extra player, you can use him for a different assignment or put him back in coverage, maybe on a spy. That's 1,000,000% going to help. This was a game where Washington was averaging 350 yards a game, and the 2 guys that I just mentioned held him to 255 yards on 51 attempts, 2 interceptions, of course, on Michael Penix as well, and he was not very accurate in this game. Now, some people, are going on, I want to hit this point as well before we actually get into it. So after surrendering 174 yards on the ground in the opening quarter, 174 rushing yards, Washington only allowed 129 over the last 3 quarters and held Michigan without a touchdown for almost 3 straight quarters, a lot like we saw Alabama have to make Michigan get it together in the end of the game, except Michigan was able to pull it together in some very key moments. And obviously, Washington wasn't able to hold up to the task. And even an interesting part I saw, because I saw Michigan kind of, fall back after they were rushing the ball very well, again, almost 200 yards rushing in the first quarter. In the first 17 minutes, they had 3 runs of 40 or more yards. Then all of a sudden, it just seemed like Michigan couldn't move the ball. 7 of their next 13 offensive plays had J.J. McCarthy taking care of the ball. And that was a little confusing there because they were very prominent on the ground. I mean, they probably could have had 225 rushing in the first quarter, or not even in the first quarter, but, got into 305 yards a lot quicker if they hadn't necessarily went away from their game plan. The Wolverines kind of let the Huskies hang around in this game just a little longer than they should have. Of course, they won it by 21 going away. No question about that. But nonetheless, it felt like Michigan maybe could have cleaned it up a little more to put it away earlier, but I'm not going to rag on them with a 21-point victory here. I'm not going to talk about John Harbaugh going to the NFL until episode 61 on Friday, but I do want to mention how people saying Michael Penix isn't as good as I thought he was. Michael Penix played the best team in the nation and the best defense in the nation with maybe the best coach in college football, and by default, don't come out here and call but Penix a not top 10 pick. Now, some teams are going to overreact to this. And yes, it did hurt his draft stock some, but it's not going to completely obliterate him from going from a day 1 to a day 2 pick like some of these morons are saying. Can he elevate in the NFL because he had this success in the Pac-12? That's why they're joining the Big Ten next year. And Michigan and Washington are going to start this rivalry. Now, we know Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy are both going to the NFL draft. But Michael Penix is better than J.J. McCarthy 100 out of 100 times. Even on a bad day for Michael Penix, now it's different game plans, Michael Penix still outplayed J.J. McCarthy, arguably. How much is that to say when you lose by 21 points in the national championship? Not necessarily sure. But let's not sit here and act like Michael Penix is all of a sudden this exposed, scapegoated quarterback that's not going to be able to succeed in the NFL. He just put up 430 yards in the semi against Texas in a shootout, 37-31. So let's pump the brakes a little bit on Michael Penix not still being that top 10, not still being that day 1 pick. Because I'll say right now, it'll be like the Lamar Jackson story. If any teams want to pass on Michael Penix as that left-handed phenom we know he is, he will come back to bite them. Because Michael Penix is going to be a fantastic quarterback in the NFL. Of course, he has to get in there. Of course, he has to perform. But everything he's showing up front compared to other quarterbacks in the past, there's no reason for me to believe that Michael Penix will not be successful in the NFL. I want to hear from y'all in the chat, in the comments. Let me know if the audio is good now that I got a couple of y'all in here. And let me know how you felt about the college football playoff national championship for 2024. What's up, Darby? Good to see you, bro. NFL Black Monday news. As we know, every time the regular season ends in week 18 with the 272nd game, that some firings are going to be coming down the pipeline, whether it's maybe players being cut, whether it's coaches, GMs, coordinators, whatever the case is. And Black Monday was actually very, very active. It was very active. The Falcons fire Arthur Smith finally after Arthur Smith suffers a 31-point loss to the Saints in the season finale. And the reports came out. It's almost like, kind of like they jinxed Arthur Smith. Like, why was his job safe barring a late season collapse? He already had a mid-season collapse. He already lost to, Lord, of course I'm forgetting it now, Josh Dobbs fresh off the plane. Lost to Will Levis. I want to say they turn around and lost to maybe the Texans, if I'm not mistaken. I want to look this up because I remember this stint in the middle of the Falcons season, and I made a reel. Y'all reacted to it, and they were like, when are the Falcons finally going to fire Arthur Smith? Here we go. They lost to a rookie, Will Levis, who torched them. They lost to Josh Dobbs in his first week, fresh off the plane, didn't even know where the home locker room was. Don't worry, he turned around and beat my Saints the next week before you Falcons fans jump on me. And then they lose to Kyler Murray the first game he's back. The Cardinals went 2-8 after beating the Falcons 25-23. So there was already a midseason collapse there. Go Blue. That's absolutely right, man. Go Blue. They did their thing. Couldn't be happier for them, man. Had a lot of friends rooting for Michigan, and I was like, you know what? I think Michigan could win this one easily, and they definitely did. But the reports came out saying that his job would be safe, barring a late season collapse. Quote from December 13th, which if I lined that up correctly, let me look again. December 13th was right after the Bucks beat the Falcons 29-25. It was 4 days before December 17th when the Falcons lost to the worst team in the NFL, the Panthers, 9-7. They came out just a couple weeks after that midseason collapse and said, barring A late season collapse, Arthur Smith is safe. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported Wednesday while discussing the possibility of a head coaching job opening up in the NFC South. Should have been the New Orleans Saints. The Falcons hired Smith as head coach, of course, ahead of the 2021 season with hopes that he would turn them into a Super Bowl contender. We know he was that OC coming over from the Tennessee Titans, working with Derrick Henry, drafting Drake London, who kind of mimicked A.J. Brown, drafting Bijan Robinson, who could be that workhorse like Derrick Henry. We know all the things that were going to unfold with Arthur Smith. And then they lost to the Bucs 29-25. And then they lost to the Panthers 9-7, the worst team in the NFL. Turned around and beat the Colts, which was reputable. Then you turn around and lose to the Chicago Bears, which may not be as bad. They actually ended up being a 7-win football team this year. You lose by 20 on the road to the Bears, 37-17. And then you get blown out, obliterated by your division rival, my New Orleans Saints, 48-17. And I already told you guys, this offense was better under Dan Quinn in his last 3 years than it was in the 3 years under Arthur Smith. In the last 3 years of Dan Quinn as head coach, when Raheem Morris took over, it was 16th in points, 18th in yards, 13th in points, 5th in yards, 10th in points, and 6th in yards. In 3 years under Arthur Smith, 26th in points, 29th in yards, 15th in points, 24th in yards, 26th in points, 17th in yards, with the 26 and the 17 being in this most recent season. If you want to go back a couple of years, well, no, I'll get out of that because Kyle Shanahan left the year after when they were the first team offense in the league and the second best in yards, first in points. They went 15 in points, 8 in yards, 10th in points, 6 in yards. So Dan Quinn, as a defensive-minded head coach, now given I know the coordinators were better, but Arthur Smith was brought in to be this offensive guy. I understand Dan Quinn dealt with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was his quarterback. I understand that. Arthur Smith also had 1 year of Matt Ryan as well. I understand it was on the back, part of Matt Ryan's career also. And that's why I told Falcons fans, be careful what you wish for. The grass isn't always green on the other side. They should have been elated, humbled that Matt Ryan wanted to come back to that poverty franchise year over year over year over year and continue to be the quarterback. I understand things aren't necessarily the same between Arthur Smith and Dan Quinn, but if you're touted for that offense that you created in Tennessee, that you were supposed to take those levels, or that you're supposed to take the Falcons to those levels, that's why you were hired. And I get it. It was a Marcus Mariota and a Desmond Ridder and a Taylor Heineke. But you drafted Kyle Pitts, Arthur Smith. You drafted Drake London, Arthur Smith. You drafted Bijan Robinson, Arthur Smith. You passed up on Justin Fields. You passed up on some offensive linemen. No surprise now that the Falcons want to circle back and go get Justin Fields because the Bears might be pushing him out. But Arthur Smith was supposed to be that guy, and he was not. I'd say he drafted okay outside of Kyle Pitts, and I hope Kyle Pitts has 1,200 yards receiving next year because he deserves that. Or maybe gets moved to a slot receiver. I personally think Kyle Pitts is more of a slot receiver than a tight end, just based on his build coming out of Florida. Look at how he's still built now. But the Falcons have to go get someone offensive ASAP, but as does the rest of the NFL, right? We know the Panthers are interviewing a lot of people. We're going to talk about that a little later in the Black Monday firings. And everyone the Panthers are interviewing for a head coach, the Falcons should go behind and interview them as well. The Commanders fired Ron Rivera. The Commanders started 4-5. They lost their final 8 games of the year. Ron Rivera went 26-40-1 with the Washington Commanders, and I never thought it really was a good hire to begin with back in 2020. He was defensive-minded his entire career. His stint with Carolina was before being offensive-minded really mattered. And, Ron Rivera was well-respected. I won't have any doubt about that. I mean, you look at what Ron Rivera did with the Carolina Panthers in his few years. He's got an overall record of 102, 103, and 2 in the 207 regular season games that he's coached. He's 3-5 in the postseason. So I think that brings him to 106, 108, and 2 overall in his entire career. But you see, he was 6-10, 7-5, 12-4, 7-8, 15-1, 6-10, 11-5, 7-9, 5-7, and then fired in Carolina. Never had more than 8 wins with the Washington Commanders, the football team / Commanders now. 7-9, 7-10, 8-8 and 1, and then 4-13. So by far his worst season since he was a Washington Commander. They lost their final 8 games of the year, and that's going to put a sore taste in anybody's mouth, especially after you go 4-13. They had a lot of high expectations this year, and they weren't able to execute upon them. Now, the Washington football team at the time won the NFC East in 2020, Ron Rivera's first year. Of course, when he did go 7 when he did go 7-9, but we also know that there was new ownership that came into the Washington Commanders as well. We know that Eric Bieniemy is in the building as well on that 2-year deal. Eric Bieniemy should be the head coach for Washington if they have any sort of sense within that organization. Washington started 2-0 this year, and they went 2-13 down the stretch. Now, yes, I understand Bieniemy was that was that offensive coordinator with the Sam Howell, with some of the other quarterbacks that had to jump in and out of the lineup this year. But of course, overall, a disappointing year for the Washington Commanders. Of course, Dan Snyder brought him in. It was a very, very rough time with Ron Rivera being there. Rivera was a defensive head coach, defensive coordinator. Jack Del Rio really struggled to sort out a defense that was pretty vulnerable to giving up big plays this year. Commanders finished the season last in scoring defense with 30.5 points allowed and yards surrendered with 389 yards surrendered per game. Washington allowed at least 27 points in each of their last 8 games as well. We saw on Halloween, too, they sent out Montez Sweat, they sent out Chase Young, and then Ron Rivera fired Jack Del Rio and the defensive backs coach Brent Visselmeyer following a 45-10 Thanksgiving loss to the Cowboys. So they were already kind of, cleaning house as the season went on, but we won't sit here and say that Ron Rivera didn't have some solid quarterback, or not solid quarterbacks, didn't have some shaky quarterback play under his time in Washington. And really with his entire career, right? But how much of an advantage are we really going to give him outside of a 15-1 Cam Newton MVP Super Bowl loss year when Cam Newton was pretty average outside of those years throwing the football? He was a great runner, but running the football wasn't going to win you games back then. It kind of running the football with a quarterback. It kind of still doesn't now as much as Cam wanted to. But then we know there was Alex Smith, and then there was Taylor Heineke, and then there was Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then there was Carson Wentz. And then now there's Sam Howell, that 5th-round pick. And, some people, me included, maybe thought that if Sam Howell would have continued, if the Commanders had performed at the height that Sam Howell did, because Sam Howell had a lot of good games this year, 5th-round pick in the 2022 draft. He led the league in completions and passing yards. Well, Tua did, excuse me. But then also had a league-high 21 interceptions. Yikes. And he was sacked 65 times. So Ron Rivera didn't have the best hand dealt to him in his entire coaching career with a quarterback, and his defense fell off. When you're brought in as a defensive guy because of how Carolina was able to play, and you don't perform up to that standard, it's not going to be nice. But he was a 9-year linebacker in the NFL. He had only coached defensive positions, so what the hell did Washington really think was going to happen here? That's why they hired Eric Bieniemy. That's why Bieniemy's on a 2-year deal. Bieniemy's probably going to go next year, win 8 to 10 games with Sam Howell or whoever they decide to bring in at quarterback. Then people are going to realize, wow, he can really do it in a bad franchise. Now let's give him a head coaching position. I hope Bieniemy gets hired this offseason. But if the Commanders are smart, they'll hold him in the building, and they will not let him get out of their sight. You even look at the defense for the Washington Commanders as well in the 4 years it was under Ron Rivera. 4th in points, 2nd in yards in the first year. Then they turn around 25th in points, 22nd in yards. Then they turn around last year, 7th in points, 3rd in yards. Then they turn around this year, 32nd in points, 32nd in yards. And the offense was never good. It was never better than 24th in points, 23rd in points, and it was never better than 20th in yards. This team is lost offensively, and that's why they need to keep Eric Bieniemy. On to the next NFL Black Monday move. Mike Vrabel was fired today, or when this video gets posted, by the Tennessee Titans. Mike Vrabel, who 4 out of his last 6 years had a winning record, caught lightning in a bottle with Ryan Tannehill, dealt with the most new players on a roster a couple years ago and still managed to get the 1 seed. I think there were over 90 players that ran through that roster. No one had more different starting lineups than the Tennessee Titans that year. And Mike Vrabel was fired today. Very shocking to me. Because Mike Vrabel felt like he had started to get it together. Will Levis was coming around a little bit. Of course, the Malik Willis draft wasn't necessarily the best. A.J. Brown did get out under his watch. We also see Kevin Byard go to the Eagles as well. Eagles are one of the worst secondaries in the league, so we don't really have to go over that. But more than anything, Mike Vrabel was a defensive-minded head coach. And when you don't have a quarterback catching a lightning in a bottle season, that's what's going to happen. I hate that Mike Vrabel lost his job. I really do. Because Mike Vrabel is one of the better coaches in the NFL, but I also did say the Tennessee Titans were going to be very talent-strapped this year. And they were. Back-to-back losing seasons, and the owner even came out and said they didn't want to wait for a trade because it would have put them about 3 weeks behind, and they want to go ahead and start searching for a head coach right off the rip. And in that aspect, I don't blame him. 6 years here, he's shown you what he's done. Again, a little bit of an unfair hand because just like Rivera with the quarterbacks and the injuries, kind of the same thing with Vrabel. It was lightning in a bottle Ryan Tannehill. Then you have to wonder about drafting Malik Willis. Then you kind of questionably draft Will Levis. Will Levis is better than Malik Willis. I think we can say right now Levis does have more playing time. But controlling owner Amy Adams Strunk was asked if she considered trading the coach instead of firing him. Quote, yes, there was. But there's a lot of misconception about a coach's contract, say versus a player's deal. A coach's contract, you can't trade them unless they are a willing partner to that trade. So yes, we thought about it, but at the end of the day, with league rules the way they are, it would have maybe put us back 3 weeks. And to get the right head coach, I was just not willing to go to the back of the line and take a chance of missing out on someone we really wanted. So Titans fans hearing that, like if I'm a Titans fan today, I'm happy that my owner said that on record. Because there is a Bieniemy, there is a Todd Monken, there is a Mike McDonald, there is a Bengals OC, there is a Dolphins OC, there is a Lions OC. This is one of the best years to start a rebuild with the quarterback and with a head coach. And I wish like hell my New Orleans Saints were doing it because every freaking body else in the NFC South is, but I'm going to stay on the Tennessee Titans here. I'm proud of the Titans for letting their owner be this vulnerable in the post-game presser. Because she even goes on to say, it was as difficult as any decision I've made as a controlling owner. Mike Vrabel's firing comes a year after the Titans made a change at GM, hiring Ron Carthon, of course. 2018 to 2021 appearances, 63% win percentage, 25 points per game, plus 13 in the turnover differential. 2022 and 2023, no playoff appearances, 38% win percentage, 18 points per game, technically 17.7, and minus 9 in the turnover differential. Again, Mike Vrabel led Tennessee to 4 consecutive winning seasons after he came up in 2018, went to the AFC Championship against the resilient Chiefs that year, unfortunately blew the lead, or the Chiefs came back just like they did on everyone else. We saw they had a 51-7 run to the Texans, and then they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. Multiple games under 500 both times. They were 6-11 this year, and they were 7-10 the year before. After going 11-5, 12-5, 9-7, and 9-7. So outside of the last 2 years, Mike Vrabel had only had 2 losing seasons. No losing seasons outside of the last 2 years. And this is very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. But I'll tell you right now, Mike Vrabel is going to be one of the first head coaches hired in the NFL. I don't think, let me take that back. Because he's one of the few defensive minds like a Sean McDermott. I'm really trying to think of another defensive-minded head coach. I guess you could technically say John Harbaugh's defensive-minded because we know what the Ravens have been all these years, and it's a lot of credit to Todd Monken with that offense being the way it is, number 1 offense in the league, also number 1 defense in the league as well. But I'd venture to say that, Mike Vrabel is one of the better defensive head coaches, no doubt about it. But the last 2 years have kind of exposed for him that defensive-minded head coaches, and it's been a thing for the last, 4 or 5 years, you need an offensive-minded head coach. He's also had a lot of quarterback controversy. He's also had a lot of injuries. He's also had Derrick Henry, that bell cow back in the league, tailor off. Derrick Henry, by the way, who's going to be a free agent in March, who's already thanked the Titans for having him. He basically knows he's gone. And with the Titans, shipping out Vrabel, it's probably all but done. Derrick Henry said, he told The Athletic, shocked. He was stunned by Mike Vrabel's firing. Quote, wow, I'm shocked. Coach Vrabel's a leader of men. He's a great coach and teacher. I know he'll get another opportunity right away. I look forward to it. Mike Vrabel, back-to-back AFC South championships in 2020 and 2021. Number 1 seed in 2021. Same year that Mike Vrabel was coach of the year as well. He finished the Titans seasons with the 54-45 record, 2-3 in the postseason. 2019, he led Tennessee to the AFC title game. I think Mike Vrabel will be back. I think he'd be an amazing defensive coordinator. I really, really do. But even his years with defense with the Tennessee Titans outside of 2021, when they were 6th in points, 12th in yards, first year he got there, 24th in points, 28th in yards. Third year he was there, 14th in points, 23rd in yards. This past year he was 16th in points, 18th in yards. In his first year he had 4 total points, 4th in points, 2nd in yards offensively. The offense got worse every single year. Every single year, the offense got worse. And this isn't a knock to Mike Vrabel, because with him being a linebackers coach at Ohio State, a defensive line coach, then a linebackers coach with the Texans, then a defensive coordinator for the Texans, to come in and be a head coach and be one win away from a Super Bowl with a Ryan Tannehill who, if we remember, Mike Vrabel made the decision to bring Tannehill off the bench because Marcus Mariota was stinking up the joint. And Ryan Tannehill had no sort of career from Miami earlier. Now people are talking about Tannehill as his top 10, top 7, top 8 quarterback. Here comes the deal for him. And just like when Baker Mayfield caught the lightning in a bottle with the Browns, it was the same thing that happened to Mike Vrabel with the Tennessee Titans. And the last thing here on Black Monday before we possibly hit a little break and continue on through the show, the Panthers fired their GM immediately after the season was over. They set up 8 interviews for the GM and 9 interviews for the head coach. For the GM position, they'll interview Giants assistant Brandon Brown, Buccaneers assistant GM Mike Greenberg, also Giants assistant GM Brandon Brown, I forgot that there. Chiefs VP of football operation Brand Tillis, Eagles assistant GM, Saints assistant GM, Ravens VP of football admin, Colts assistant GM, Raiders interim GM. They've also requested 9 candidates for their head coaching job as well. The Lions, the Texans, the Bengals, the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Bucs OC, Cowboys DC, and the Rams DC, and the Ravens DC. They're going for big Ben Johnson, Bobby Slovic, Brian Callahan, Dan Quinn, Mike McDonald, Frank Smith, Rob Morris, Todd Monken, Dave Canales. I think they should really focus on Ben Johnson, probably Brian Callahan, and I would make every push I could for Todd Monken and Frank Smith as well. Those feel like the 4 best overall coaching candidates probably in the league. We'll talk about that in a later show. Best coaching candidates and best head coaching vacancies as well. But just like I said earlier, and I just wanted to give the Panthers their flowers. First of all, David Tepper needs to sell a team. He's a businessman, not a sports franchise owner. At least he shouldn't be with the Panthers and in the NFL, because they've had the 2nd worst record since David Tepper bought the team back in 2018, I believe it was. Losing record, by the way. The only worst team is the New York Jets in the last 5 years record-wise. He's throwing drinks on Jacksonville Jags fans. $300,000 fine. That's an equivalent to like $1.37 for the average American, because you know Tepper's worth a cool few billion. Yeah, billion with a B. But like I just said, and they got Bryce Young, right? So their quarterback aspect is out of it. But this is the best year to go for a rebuild in the 2 biggest positions of your franchise. And really I guess we can say the 3. There's always good GM candidates on the table, in my opinion. But this many head coaching vacancies coming up this year, we might see more head coaches get fired as well, maybe just past Black Monday. But this is the best year to go for that rebuild. This is the best year to go get that head coach, to go get that quarterback. Go get you a Jaden Daniels, a Michael Penix, a Bo Nix, a Caleb Williams, a Drake May. Go get you a Todd Monken, a Frank Smith, a Dave Canales, a Ben Johnson. Go get you a Brian Callahan. I'm proud of the Panthers. I'm very proud of the Panthers, because to win 2 games with the number 1 pick, fire your 3rd coach in as many seasons, with the most impatient owner in the NFL, props to them. They're lining it up. Black Monday starts. GM out. 8 head coach, 8 GM interviews lined up, and 9 head coaching interviews lined up as well. I have good faith that with the Panthers being this diligent on Black Monday, and shortly after the season ended, of course, with that being Black Monday, they should, hopefully, under David Tepper's watch, make the right decision. Because they've got everything at their disposal. You're the worst team in the league. You gave the Chicago Bears the number 1 pick. It's only up from here. Bryce Young's only up from here. Adam Thielen, if he's still there, only up from here. Chuba Hubbard, only up. I hope the Panthers make the right decision. Really, really do. Want to see where we're at in the show real quick. 1, 2, 3. We'll hit this NFL Week 18 recap. Y'all know I'm going to talk about my New Orleans Saints. We'll have the Who Dat Corner on the next show because plenty of Saints news is broken. The Saints destroy the Falcons 48-17. Complete obliteration. Shutout in the second half after being tied at 17 at halftime. Defense forcing a couple of turnovers, interceptions from Desmond Ridder. We'd love to see that. Alontae Taylor, his second ever pick in his career. Tyrann Mathieu with his 40th career takeover. Turnover, 71-yard return down to the 1-yard line. Of course, the controversy ensued from there, but we'll get to that in a second. And Atlanta started hot, right? 52-yard pass to Scotty Miller, 71-yard catch and run that Alontae Taylor horribly whiffed on and got benched for on Bijan Robinson. And the Saints defense seemed like it was going to be in for a very long day because I'm like, here we go again. Week 12, we're giving up the big play over 200 yards rushing. That's unheard of for the Saints. Even a 100-yard rusher over 200 yards rushing allowed in an entire game to the rival in the Falcons. We kicked 5 field goals. We're over 5 in the red zone. Falcons are putting up points on us. Big plays to Bijan. Desmond Ridder scrambling. And the Saints said, not damn today. Not happening today. And I'm glad that the Saints tightened up. I'm glad that they pitched a shutout in the second half. I'm glad we blasted the doors off the Falcons 48-17. We saw the second half open up with an interception from Desmond Ridder. Of course, the Tyrann Mathieu pick, like I just mentioned as well. It was the most points the Saints have scored all season, and it was the second largest win of the season for the Saints as well. We won by 31, outside of when we beat the piss out of the Patriots 34-0 earlier in the year. Saints win 4 of their last 5. Derek Carr was very good and had good numbers, but they were against bad teams. He was first in the league in completion percentage. He had a ton of touchdowns and not a lot of interceptions. He had a ton of yards. His passer rating was great. But it was against the Bucs, the Giants, the Falcons. Come on now. We know that, first of all, point done there, next point here. I've been telling myself all year it's so hard for me to root against my team. It really is. Because as I'm watching the game, I'm like, hell yeah, touchdown. Make a play here, make a play there. But I wanted to lose for draft position, more stains on DA's resume, same record in 2 years, still playoff list under his watch, which they're still playoff list under his watch now. But now he just won one more game, and I guess a freaking 31-point loss is going to be enough for the owner and GM to bring Dennis Allen back for another year of piss-poor mediocrity. But the Saints as a fan base, they know this win doesn't mean anything besides pride for tying the all-time rivalry record, for the Falcons and the Saints, which made the Saints give Derek Carr and Dennis Allen another year. Derek Carr is kind of already here, but I need the Saints to make Derek Carr the highest-paid clipboard holder in NFL history, and especially in the league next year. This win means nothing. It means we went a little higher in the draft. If we would have made the playoffs, we would have moved back even more. But I still want a quarterback in the first round. I still want a Bo Nix. I still want a Jaden Daniels. I still want a Michael Penix, a Caleb Williams, a Drake May. We're drafting 14th. I almost don't want to draft the quarterback because I know Dennis Allen will have a hold of him. Maybe. Graciously hope we get an amazing offensive coordinator in there. But if we don't go after the quarterback this year, I'm almost willing to let the quarterback come in this year and be in this mediocrity so we can turn around and have a fresh start the year after, because I just don't believe the quarterback class next year is going to be as plentiful at this season. And we have to take advantage. We have to pounce. We have to make a move, because with one of the healthiest rosters all year, for the most part, with coming in the easiest schedule in the NFL, the Saints didn't face a lot of good quarterbacks as well. Even if you want to talk about, the winning percentage changes, just like I say, as the season goes on, still didn't play a lot of good quarterbacks, because here we were again, just like last year with the Giants game, 2 years ago with the Giants game, blowing the lead and they lose. Or a couple years ago with the Bucs game, blowing the lead and they lose. And your playoff hopes in week 18, no matter if you take care of business, it's going to be in someone else's hands. It makes you think back to the 17-0 game against Green Bay when Derek Carr got hurt. And we blew the fourth quarter lead. We lose 18-17. Special teams punt return touchdown by Rashid Shaheed. 17-0 fourth quarter lead. 3-possession fourth quarter lead. Blew it. Shouldn't have lost to the Jags. Blew it. Really shouldn't have lost to the Falcons. Blew it. Shouldn't have lost to the Vikings. Blew it. Had a chance to beat the Texans. Blew it. I mean, what? That's 10 to 11 wins just right there if the Saints get it together and win those types of games. Anyway, we win by 31. It doesn't mean anything. But I do want to talk about the Dennis Allen and Arthur Smith midfield altercation. First of all, love the hot mics. Dennis Allen's weak ass goes, I understand that. Immediately in the post-game presser. And the last play of the game, not that it's a surprise, in the post-game presser from Dennis Allen perfectly encapsulate how this locker room doesn't respect him fully. We never heard about Sean Payton calling victory formation and then the whole team collectively because of a 71-yard punt return up by already, 41-17 by 24 points. They're not overturning Sean Payton's word and going for it. Sean Payton probably would have benched somebody the next game. If we're making the playoffs, you're not playing. Because we know Sean Payton could be an asshole. We know Sean Payton had authority. He might not be doing the best job with Russell Wilson and treating him right as he treated Drew Brees. But the players respected him. And Jameis Winston wanted to get the leading touchdown runner, rushing touchdown player of last season with 17, and Jamal Williams wanted to get him his one and only of the year because he got down to the 1-yard line. And in a way, I respect Jameis for standing on business with the reporters, saying, I'm trying to be respectful as well. I wouldn't change it. I did apologize to DA, but I told him it was a collective decision. But Dennis Allen literally said, go out there in victory formation. The player said, nah, we're going to run the score up on our division rivals. We're going to fake like it's victory formation and then turn around and hand it to Jamal Williams. And then if I'm not damned, after a shellacking to tie the series and possibly go to the freaking playoffs, Dennis Allen comes out, well, first and foremost, I want to apologize to Arthur Smith. That wasn't something that we intended to do. We called victory formation. Really? Do you know who you're apologizing to, Dennis Allen? We say FTF religiously for a reason. I'm trying to be more family friendly on this show. But if you're a Saints fan, if you know, you know. FTF. Falcons fans, you know. You're apologizing for winning the football game. You should be on your players in the locker room for them going against your call. But we've seen it all year. Michael Thomas with the tweets. Eric McCoy and Derek Carr beefing on the field. The defense has faded away under Dennis Allen. He's not a leader. We all understand how we feel about Dennis Allen. And it's going to be one thing that we look back on him and we say, you remember when that dweeb apologized to the Falcons for beating them by 31 in the last game of the year because we needed to go to the playoffs? It's very interesting. Very interesting. You could have apologized to anyone else. Like I say, when you tune into the show, you could have been anywhere else, but you were here. DA, you could have went anywhere else, but you went there in the wrong way. All right, enough about that. Arthur Smith, quit crying. You're just pissed because you knew your job was gone. And you had that indeed late season collapse that the Falcons said, barring, you would have kept your job. CJ Stroud leads the Texans to the playoffs 23-19 over the Colts. And I'm so proud of CJ Stroud, guys. I mean, y'all already know how I feel about CJ Stroud. Arguably the best rookie quarterback season ever. I think we can go ahead and give it to him, say that it is the best rookie quarterback season ever. 64% completion, 4,100 yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Didn't throw a pick for the first 6 weeks of the year. Didn't throw a pick for another 2 weeks after that. Turned around and threw 3 more, and then didn't throw an interception for another month. Last pick he threw, it was 3 against the Cardinals on November 19th. 64% completion, 101 passer rating, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks, 4,108 yards, 10-win season, playoff berth. Did they win the division? I think they did because the Jaguars choked. Yes, they did. CJ Stroud's first year, 10 wins, playoff berth, under a rookie head coach, division title, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks, 64% completion, 4,100 yards, 101 passer rating. What more can you say about CJ Stroud? if you haven't realized that he's here to stay and that he is what feels like what we've wanted Justin Herbert to be, I don't know what more to tell you. I don't know what more CJ Stroud can show you on top of this first season. We already know he's locked up rookie of the year. And shout out the first play of the game. Bomb to Noah Brown, I believe. Nico Collins? Can't remember. Absolute bomb on the first offensive play of the game. Win or go home. CJ Stroud did what he had to do. 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 77% completion, 134 passer rating. Just phenomenal. I mean, truly, absolutely phenomenal. And he missed a game this year. 22 years old, doing this in his rookie season. And it's just so impressive, man. Bobby Slowick comes out, the OC. He said, I'm going to protect CJ Stroud. They had no Tank Dell because they lost him, of course. Noah Brown and Robert Woods were out before the contest, so clearly it was not Noah Brown. I believe it was Nico Collins there. Houston went out of their way to protect CJ Stroud and really sell the threat of the run in this game. Beyond the 24 carries, they ran 49.1% of their plays from under center. Their average was about 39%, so 10% more than what they did previously. Very strong game plan considering the injuries that the Texans had. Devin Singletary had the ball 24 times, kept the offense kind of on schedule, opened up some of those play action packages where, of course, Nico Collins was able to really produce. John Mechie, of course, comes in, gets some decent snaps as well. I really hope that, his 2022 cancer diagnosis continues to stay behind him. He can continue to be healed from that and move on in this offense with the Houston Texans. He ran more routes than all non-Nico Collins Houston Texans, including Dalton Schultz and Xavier Hutchinson. He ran 22 routes. John Mechie did. We know he was very, very good with Alabama, and I think he can be an even better target for CJ Stroud at this point. Hopefully a good sign of things to come in 2024 for John Mechie. And then even heavy personnel in this game was fantastic as well. They ran 13 personnel, which is one running back and 3 tight ends on only 7 plays in the game. Those plays averaged 14.29 yards per play and accounted for 100 yards plus 2 of their 3 touchdowns in the game. Who says you can't be explosive out of heavier types of personnel settings? That CJ Stroud is very solid. Very solid in that formation. 10 plays actually from 13 personnel, 75-yard play action bomb to Nico Collins for the touchdown, like I said, on the first play of the game. It was just absolutely phenomenal. Derek Stingley was targeted just 4 times and allowed no catches on 25 coverage snaps in the game. He'll be a huge asset in the playoffs for the Texans. Sheldon Rankins continued to be dominant. He was double-teamed on 41% of his pass rushes against Indy per next-gen stats. He's been one of Nick Caserio's really, best investments coming out of free agency. And, of course, we know with the Saints, he was very solid as well. I believe he came over from the Vikings. Maybe? No, I'm thinking about Marcus Davenport. My bad. But Sheldon Rankins was, very solid. Very solid. And now the Texans OC Bobby Slowick is going to be getting interviewed like from the Panthers, like I just mentioned, because the Panthers are going on to just interview everybody. Everybody at this point. CJ Stroud, though, I mean, again, just monster. Offensive Rookie of the Year, easily. CJ Stroud is going to continue to put on these masterclasses in the NFL, and the Texans are going to be contenders sooner rather than later. Jonathan Taylor in this game, 30 carries for 188 yards, 6.3 on the average, 1 touchdown. By halftime, he had 89 total yards and was already averaging 6.2 yards per carry. So he just absolutely went off in Week 18 for Indianapolis. And shout out Indy as well. Shane Steichen getting them to 9 wins shouldn't have even happened without Anthony Richardson. Even if he had Anthony Richardson, that would have been remarkable with a Gardner Minshew. Having to get Jonathan Taylor back into that locker room, having to get the locker room back around Jonathan Taylor is very impressive. Very, very impressive. And he was able to do that. And Shane Steichen has a ton. What's up, Megan? Thanks for tapping into the show. Shane Steichen coached so well for the Colts this year. But it wasn't better than what the Texans did, of course. 188 rushing yards is the second most he's had in a game in his career, and it was the first time he went over 100 rushing yards this season. Of course, talking about Jonathan Taylor. He had 196 total yards, and he was responsible for 54.4% of the offense's total yards as well, but they couldn't stop Nico Collins in this game. 146 yards on 7 receptions and a touchdown in the first meeting of the year. Turns right around. 195 yards on 9 targets. In 2 games against the Colts this year, he's had 16 catches for 341 yards and 2 touchdowns. So clearly, they are not able to get after Nico Collins. They're not able to guard Nico Collins. And Nico Collins is a fantastic wide receiver asset for this team as well. Imagine if Tank Dell would have actually been in this game. In the first half, the defense forced 3 straight punts, gave up a 75-yard touchdown, but the offense failed. After giving up the 75-yard touchdown, now talking about the Colts, the offense, of course, failed to do anything. They punted every time, which also included a 3 and out. Continued on in the second half. The defense, again, forced 2 straight punts to start the third quarter, but the offense did get a touchdown on their first drive, but not after converting a 3rd and 9 to get in better field goal position. Matt gave 57-yarder that hit the upright and gave the Texans great field position, unfortunately. The Colts were just bad on money downs. 111 on 3rd down, 0 for 1 on 4th down. It's been an issue in games throughout the year, and I think it's Shane Steichen's, one of his biggest points that he's going to carry on throughout the season, no doubt. But again, so proud of CJ Stroud. Can't wait to see what he does in the NFL for the rest of his time, and especially in his sophomore year. Now, he does have to keep it up. We've seen these sophomore slumps happen. We've also seen these sophomore jumps happen, too. Jordan Love leads the Packers to the playoffs over the Chicago Bears. How do the Packers keep doing this? 9-8. Jordan Love sits for years behind Aaron Rodgers. They draft Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers goes on to win back-to-back MVPs. Back-to-back MVPs. Jordan Love is able to rally behind Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers goes over to the Jets. Jordan Love comes out in his rookie year and absolutely shows people why he will be that franchise quarterback for the Packers. 27 of 32 in this game. Over 300 yards. Damn it. Let me go out of that because I don't want that to be playing on y'all's end. Okay, here we go. 27 of 32, 316 yards, 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones had 22 carries for 111 yards. Jaden Reed, very good game, 4 for 112. Justin Fields was smothered, 17, Packers 17, Bears 9. And Jordan Love, in his first year, 64% completion as a full-year starter, 64% completion, 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And he has the Packers in the playoffs, given in the NFC, at a 9-8 record. Got to give the hats off to it. You got to. Because me and a lot of people did not see this coming out of Jordan Love. People saying, me included, is there a reason we haven't seen a lot of him? Maybe it's just because he flat out can't play. Because we saw him get drafted with Aaron Rodgers being hurt. Aaron Rodgers, of course, goes on to tear the next 2 years. But we didn't get to see a whole bag, really, of Jordan Love until this year. And he showed up, and he showed out, and he's going to get his payday, and he is going to be that future of the Green Bay Packers. Because after the last 4 months, earning a playoff berth for the Packers is just so rewarding. It's so fulfilling. At the end of October, they were 2-5. 2 weeks later, they were 3-6. After they won 3 in a row, then they fell to 6-8. And it was really do or die on Christmas weekend, right? 3 straight wins. The last 2 were against NFC North rivals. Ended the Packer playoff droughts at just 1 year. And they're back in the postseason in quarterback Jordan Love's hands. And, of course, his first full season as a starter. He said it meant everything. It was an opportunity that we worked for all year with our back against the wall. He's just very proud of this team. 27 of 32, 316 yards to go, over 4,000 on the year. 2 touchdowns, both to Dontavion Wicks. 129 passer rating, 7 for 10 on 3rd down. He was very clutch, laser-like throws at certain points in the game, avoiding pressure, keeping the chains moving. Jordan Love is a baller. Take his first snap of the 4th quarter on Love's last play. He'd fumbled the ball to the Bears while scrambling for a first down, and Chicago turned the takeaway into a field goal to get within 14-9. I thought this was going to be a competitive game as well. I needed the Bears to win this game for my Saints to get in, although I didn't want my Saints to get in. Jordan Reed, immaculate game. 59-yard gain that set him up on another field goal to get back to that 8-point advantage. They killed 6 minutes and 8 seconds off the clock on the last drive, starting at their own 6-yard line. Jordan Love stepped up in the pocket, 3rd and 7, 15-yard completion to Tucker Kraft that, pretty much put the game away. You got to respect his improv in the clutch right there. And Matt LaFleur came out and was you can't really coach that. That's just how resilient Jordan Love is. And he has that capability to make that off-schedule playmaking. Even though the score was 17-9, the Packers dominated this game 432 to 192 in terms of yards. The first downs were 24-13. The Bears were 3 of 11 on 3rd down. It was just a very, very, very dominant effort, but the defense was even strong all day as well. Justin Fields got sacked 5 times, 3 field goals for Chicago. Of course, no touchdowns. The Bears got to midfield or further on all 6 of their possessions. They only touched the ball 6 times in the game. They went past midfield on all of them, and the Packers did not give up a score. 2 failures in the red zone. Running out of time to get in field goal range at the end of the first half. Jordan Love had a fumble. They had some missed opportunities. They had some missed opportunities in this game to lose, to possibly let it get away. And they held very, very strong. Jordan Love, playoff-bound victory. And I think this is going to now put a lot of, a lot of people are going to be confident in Green Bay. A lot of people are going to expect Green Bay to probably win 11 to 12 games next year. I haven't looked at the schedule for them, but Jordan Love is solid. If Jordan Love is a play or two away from possibly getting the competitive Packers to an NFC title game with or without his performance, I'm not shocked because the Packers have a bright future ahead of them. And over 30 touchdowns as a rookie, over 4,100 yards as a rookie. I mean, that's a Justin Herbert type of rookie season. That's almost a CJ Stroud type of rookie / first full year starter season. Did anyone expect that? No, not at all. Not at all. Packers were 2 of 4 in the red zone, though. They could have been 4 for 4 if Romeo Doubs and Bo Melton didn't have some drops. Aaron Jones in the run game, over 100 yards for the 3rd week in a row, 6 yards per carry. The Bears are only allowing 3.7 yards per rush on the season. And they, the Packers were just confident. They were efficient. They did get rattled at points. They were calm for most of the time. And, just about any situation, I feel like in these last 3 weeks, the Packers have been very solid. And Jordan Love just seems like he's in complete control. And for him to just play at this level, spreading the ball around well, throwing well outside the numbers, on the left hash, over the middle of the field, in between the numbers, Jordan Love is going to be a quarterback that the Packers probably don't have to worry about for the next couple of years. And not a lot of teams can say that. And then when you have a pass rush that can back it up with 5 sacks, albeit on a Bears offensive line, Joe Barry dialing up some blitzes to make those things happen, containing DJ Moore. Of his 64 yards, 33 of them came on one play where he got matched up with a linebacker and Quay Walker. Other than that, the Packers were able to keep things very in front of them, very comfortable for them. And that's why they were able to get to the playoffs. The Packers enter the game 1-6 when losing the turnover battle this year. They lost the turnover battle in this game, but won the game, which was very vital for them if they wanted to get into the playoffs. Packers were 7 of 10 on 3rd down, and the Bears, again, just 3-11. Chicago was also 0 for 2 in the red zone. So when you dig into the game, it makes sense why the Packers did win, even though the scoreboard didn't show you that. And the final game of week 12. The final game of week 18. We'll hit a small break after this, and then we're going to hit a couple of playoff segments, and we'll get out of here for tonight. The Bills beat the Dolphins for the AFC East title 21-14, not 24-21, despite Josh Allen throwing 2 horrible red zone interceptions. We know he's a turnover machine. And despite Josh Allen losing a fumble as well. Magical late season run for Buffalo. When you look at their schedule too, I mean, this team wasn't sitting too pretty. I didn't think this was going to be an 11-win football team. I thought they'd win 8, maybe 9 games at best. But after losing to the Eagles, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Chargers, they beat the Patriots, they beat the Dolphins. They went on a 5-game heater and really could have even beat the Eagles because that was the game the Eagles kind of, flailed back some. 37-34 in overtime. Josh Allen, again, with a turnover, put them out of the football game. But then they beat the Chiefs 20-17. They blow out the Cowboys by 21. They beat the Chargers by 2. They get it close with the Patriots. They beat the Dolphins by 7. And now they're hosting a playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They wiped the Jets 32-6. Unfortunately, they lose to the Broncos 24-22 the game before that. They lose to the Bengals too. But I mean, you look before, after they lost to the Eagles, they were 6-6. And they went on a 5-game heater. You can say them and the Browns are the hottest team in the NFL. They went on a 5-game heater to clinch the division, to win the division, to get it away from a choking Miami Dolphins team and host a playoff game to the 10-7 Pittsburgh Steelers. But you got to give the credit to Buffalo and Josh Allen on the road, clinching the 2 seed in the AFC, winning the division in Hard Rock Stadium 21-14. And it was kind of a tough game, for Josh Allen and Tua. They both swapped interceptions on the opening 2 drives as well. Josh Allen had another pick on Buffalo's second drive of the night. Turnover came inside the end zone to eliminate that scoring opportunity. Of course, that was there for the Bills. On the backside of the turnover, Miami drove 80 yards down the field. Devon Achane scoring with a 25-yard touchdown run. Devon Achane is such a difference maker when it comes to the Miami Dolphins defense. And that's very clear. It's very clear that Devon Achane is a difference maker. And I think he could be the best running back in the NFL next year if he's healthy. He is literally Tyreek Hill at running back. This is a Chris Johnson. This is a more electric, almost, I'd argue, Bijan Robinson. Not saying he's better than Bijan. Bijan could also very well be the best running back next year as well. But Devon Achane is very, very good. Lightning quick. Gets in the end zone. Missed some time this year and still was running it up with the touchdowns. Same thing with Raheem Mostert as well. They were up 14-7. The ball, Miami, the Dolphins led as they brought the ball to the Miami 11-yard line in the closing seconds. Josh Allen threw it over the middle. It was incomplete. That second interception in the end zone was just absolutely hideous. Josh Allen trying to do too much in this game. They were kind of lucky to win this game considering the turnover battle and really, how it went. Basically a scoreless third quarter, really quiet second half, and then Buffalo's defense forced a punt on the following possession after it opened up. Deontay Hardy went from the 5-yard line, took it 95 yards to the house to tie it at 14 in the opening minutes of the fourth quarter. And, Buffalo had to pull it together. Buffalo had to pull it together against a team that had only beat one team over 500 this year and had the capability to possibly beat 2 of the teams over 500 this year. They had the capability to do it. The Dolphins don't. And I hate that the Dolphins choked it away so bad. I really do. Tua led the league in passing yards, 4,600 yards. Tua had the best offense in the NFL. Maybe the best head coach in the NFL. But how much can we really rely on you when you don't beat teams that are over 500? Again, the only win was to the Cowboys, and I think they just caught the Cowboys on an off day. Josh Allen was 30 of 38, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Khalil Shakir led all receivers with 105 yards on 6 catches. Tua was 17 of 27, 173 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Tua was bad. You could say Josh Allen wasn't much better because of his 2 bad interceptions as well, but his team does come out on top. His team does win. His team does get the better playoff seeding, and his team does win the division as well. You could tell that the scoring or the turning point was Deontay Hardy in this game, former New Orleans Saint. 95-yard punt return. Bills outscored the Dolphins 14-0 in the second half. And, Josh Allen not Josh Allen, Deontay Hardy being able to return that ball, being able to return that punt, it really did change a lot because Buffalo felt like they were just in control after that. I know the game was only tied at 14. They only scored 1 more touchdown after that. All 5 of his passes, though, Josh Allen comes in, completes all 5 of his passes for 68 yards, accounted for 5 yards on the ground. Also threw the go-ahead touchdown pass to Dawson Knox as well. And even after that drive, Josh Allen was able to pull together all the right pieces, utilize his legs to kill the clock, force the Dolphins into using their timeouts, and then Buffalo's defense stepped up in a major way, shuts the Dolphins out as well. One of the best second-half scoring teams in the league over the final 2 quarters was the Miami Dolphins. Buffalo said absolutely not today. And we see that the Dolphins lost this game because they had just 47 total yards of offense in the second half. Well, they didn't have Jalen Waddle. Well, they didn't have Raheem Mostert. They still had a healthy Tua and Tyreek Hill. Now, I know Tyreek is, kind of been banged up a little bit. He was limping a little bit in this game, and he had some, past few games where he didn't fall off, but that 2,000-yard season was, starting to dwindle. And Miami should have won this game. They should have. They kind of played like the better team in certain stints. But when it came down to it, they squandered moments when the Bills were really trying to hand the game away. The defense forced a punt on the opening drive in the second half. The Dolphins went 3 and out. The offense went 3 and out immediately after that. Josh Allen then fumbled on an awesome play from Christian Wilkins that eliminated the Buffalo scoring opportunity, and then they couldn't capitalize with a score of its own again. So when you force turnovers and you don't score, and then quarterback's talking about, keeping receipts, and they go 17 of 27. Yeah, about 66% completion. 1 touchdown, 2 picks. You don't even put up 200 yards. This is the guy that led the league in passing, but also the quarterback of the same team that couldn't beat teams that were 500 or better as well. Again, only one of those wins the entire year. But I'm proud of the Bills. 5 straight wins. When they were sitting at 6-6, I was like, damn, this is going to be like an 8-9, 9-8 football team. They're 11-6. Their division, they're the 2 seed. They're division winners. Josh Allen plays his life out. And I really couldn't be happier for the Buffalo Bills to be where they're at right now. Wish the Dolphins would have been able to pull it out because I do love Tua, but Josh Allen showed why he's one of the best, why he's one of the best playmakers in the game, and why you can't hold him out of contention when it's time for the Buffalo Bills to play in big-time games. This has been episode 60 of the NFL with AJL. We're not going anywhere. Just a quick break before we get into the playoff segments here, as we're an hour and 6.5 minutes roughly about into the show. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you may be watching on Facebook, YouTube, X, or Twitch. Of course, hit the bell there on YouTube so you never miss any of our posts on YouTube, no matter the type of content that it is. Y'all have been going absolutely crazy for me on the YouTube channel. Can't wait to get off the show and see what kind of damage in a good way you guys have done for me. Subs are running up. Thank y'all for the best video I've ever posted in my reaction to Michigan beating Alabama. Dalvin Cook and the Ravens videos blowing up. Sean Payton and the Broncos and Russell Wilson videos blowing up. Guys, I've been doing this for almost 5 years now, and we're just about to get to the point of actually making some money off this show. You got to grind in this aspect. You got to be consistent. You got to post your content, and you guys are helping me get to that point. So I couldn't appreciate y'all anymore. QR code will give you every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. Hashtag the NFL with AJL. And you can also donate directly to the show with a super chat, with a super thanks. You can go over on YouTube. No donation is too small. And of course, no donation is too big as well. I'm appreciative of whatever you guys want to throw at me. Or if you want to DM me on social media and donate to the show as well, I'm okay with that. And as always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs, whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate at Buy and Sell with AJL. If I can point correctly here, at Buy and Sell with AJL are the people that you need on your side in today's real estate market. Interest rates dropping below 7%. For every 1% interest rates drop, another 5 million buyers in the United States jump back into the market. It's about 0.0007%, but still 5 million folks jumping in is going to naturally create more competition, and home prices will go up because supply is still low. Drop your email, get at them on social media, or drop your info in the comments to get on their exclusive real estate newsletter. And also, you can take advantage of their AI systems that they put in the business as well to really benefit their buyers and sellers. Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Turning clients into family by prioritizing people over transactions. Playoff power rankings for the 2024 NFL season. We've got our top 14 teams in the NFL. Let's rank them. We'll start at 14 and go up to 1. Number 14 is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're led by Baker Mayfield. They have a defensive-minded head coach. They're really only in the playoffs because somebody had to win the NFC South. Now, thankfully, they are getting that favorable matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're getting to host a playoff game with 9 wins. But will this defense be able to stifle Jalen Hurts? Quite possible. Will this defense of the Eagles fall short to the Bucs? Very possible because they've done it all year. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right next to this next team that I'm coming in to talk about here on the power rankings, they're the team that I'm least confident in and going all the way. So by default, they are the worst team in the playoffs. At number 13, I've got the Pittsburgh Steelers. If they had any other player at quarterback, like Russell Wilson, which I think Russell Wilson needs to go to, I would feel a lot better about them. But they do have Mike Tomlin, who's never had a losing season. We know that adage of Mike Tomlin. Is Kenny Pickett it? What's Mason Rudolph going to be? We have to understand, we have to see how the Steelers are going to play in these playoffs. Defense is great. Offense has a ton of talent, great coaching staff. But stacked up to these other people in the power rankings and in the playoffs, like a Cowboys, like a Niners, like a Ravens, even like a Lions or a Browns, I'm not going to trust them over a lot of the teams that are in here. Do they have a great head coach? Yes. Do they have a great defense? Yes. Did they win 10 games and shouldn't have? Yes. But they're also missing J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt for this opening game of the weekend and Super Wildcard weekend where they will face the Bills. I do think they're going to lose that football game, but nonetheless, we'll see how it plays out. Number 12, I've got the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love has played his life out this year. We just talked about how he played very well against the Bears to lead the Packers to the playoffs. Matt LaFleur has his franchise quarterback. The Packers have their fourth straight franchise quarterback. So Jordan Love has been phenomenal. The Packers, again, they start 2-5. They end up being able to go 9-8, winning enough games to get into the playoffs. And I wish they would have lost Rasul Douglas because he could really be beneficial for them right now. But I will have the Packers as the 12th best team in these playoffs currently. I've got the Los Angeles Rams at number 11. I love what Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay are doing. I love what Kyron Williams and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are able to do. I love that Sean McVay is able to coach the life out of this team with having a very young roster. Remember, we have Matthew Stafford's wife earlier in the year on a podcast saying, I really don't know if Matt's going to be able to mesh with these players. He talks about all the time how it's just different in the locker room. Matthew Stafford is one of the oldest guys on the roster. Hell, Sean McVay's really not too far from Matthew Stafford's age. That shows the youth of Sean and the elderness of Matthew Stafford in terms of being relevant to the NFL quarterback position. But I do have the Rams at 11. They're one of the hottest teams in the league right now too. I think they're a pretty solid matchup for a lot of people. I think Sean McVay is one of the best coaches left in the playoffs right now. And with him just winning that Super Bowl a couple years ago with the Rams, they're still pretty aware of what they got to do to go to the Super Bowl and win it. They dealt with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp being hurt last year, and they're right back in it in that NFC West. They're the 11th best team in the playoffs. At number 10, give me the Houston Texans, C.J. Stroud, D'Amico Ryans, everything that offense is able to offer. The Houston Texans are a good football team. C.J. Stroud's first year, again, 10 wins, division title with a rookie head coach as a rookie quarterback. 23 touchdowns, 5 picks, 101 passer rating, 64% completion, 4,100 yards. Do I need to say more? If only Tank Dell was healthy and still able. I want Will Anderson to get more healthy so he can play well through these playoffs. But D'Amico Ryans has done a fantastic job with this team. And he's got them in position to push for an upset in the first round of the playoffs. And I damn sure think that it's possible. Texans at number 10. Maybe the hottest team in the NFL right now next to the Buffalo Bills, if not the hottest, is going to be the Cleveland Browns at number 9. Let me make sure I've got that right. 5, 6, 8. Yes, the Cleveland Browns, Joe Flacco, throwing his life out of the football, throwing the football with his life on the line, basically. The defense, the coaching staff, Myles Garrett, the linebacking core, Kevin Stefanski as the head coach. I mean, the Browns getting this lightning in a bottle, Joe Flacco, who has looked better and made this team click more offensively than a Deshaun Watson, than a PJ Walker, of course, than a Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who they just drafted as a quarterback. The Browns being an 11-6 football team is not something that I saw coming once Deshaun Watson went down. I did have the Browns winning 13 games. I did have the Browns being the one seed in the AFC because I thought Deshaun Watson was going to return to that form. They still won 11 games. They still came in second in their division. Couldn't be more proud of the Cleveland Browns are going to be my number 9 team. Number 8, shakily enough, the Philadelphia Eagles. Still got to respect them for going to the Super Bowl last year. I don't think Jalen Hurts is a one-year wonder like a lot of people are saying. I don't believe Nick Sirianni should be fired. They do start 10-1. They do go 1-5 down the stretch. 31st in the NFL in points per game given up. 31 points per game allowed in the last 6 games of the year. 2-4 down the stretch after he yells, "Hey, Chiefs fans, I don't hear anything anymore." Got to be careful when you say stuff like that. It's just like what Cam Newton said, "I'm back." And it didn't turn out well for him in Carolina. And he was not doing very well overall. At the quarterback position once he made that statement. It was just like when the Giants took the picture on the boat, and they've been horrible ever since. But I do have the Eagles at number 8. The Eagles got to be careful because defensively they're not good. Their defense can be had, and they're going up against the Bucs in the first round of the playoffs. Bucs are at home, wanting to win this game. Wouldn't be shocked if we saw an upset. At number 7, give me. Sorry if y'all can hear my door rattling. I think it's just the air draft that we've got in the house. At number 7, give me the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, their first playoff appearance together. They've looked kind of vulnerable. They would be higher, but I think the teams ahead of them are, pretty decently better than them. Of course, not as vulnerable. Now, the next 2 definitely will be vulnerable, which is why I have them ahead, but I think the Lions are more vulnerable than the 2 teams ahead of them. Jared Goff's first time back in the playoffs since the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell's first time in the playoffs as a coach. Lions' first playoff game in a while. Playing the Rams at home with Matthew Stafford returning in his first year to the playoffs since they win the Super Bowl. I think the Lions could go far, but they fell apart in the last month or so of the year, which is what's going to make me very skeptical to lean into them realistically and, have them be able to go far because they lost to teams that they shouldn't have. And they got blasted by the Ravens earlier in the year. And we've seen Jared Goff be turnover prone. Now his numbers look great, but Jared Goff's got to be better. At number 6, give me the Miami Dolphins solely because of that offense. But if that offense can't do anything and they continue to lose to sub 500 teams, they could easily be lower on this list. But I don't, maybe looking at it now, I could put the Browns or the Texans over them, but their offense is still undeniable. Hopefully they'll be able to get healthy and bring their, their key players and Raheem Mostert and Jalen Waddle back in because that's what they need. The team clicks clearly much better with those 2 guys. The team also clicks very well when Devon Achane is healthy as well. We saw that he was able to provide a lot of value for the Dolphins. And the Dolphins offense is really what's got me confident in them because when you look at the offenses that are under them, they're way better than them. Defenses, not necessarily so much, especially when you look at Browns, Texans, Rams, and Steelers and Bucks. But if defenses can stop them, which usually they just have to bracket Tyreek and, make Tua a little uncomfortable, then they'll be able to be down further on this list. But I think going into the playoffs, I have them as a number 6 team. And, as I read that to y'all, part of me wants to put them lower. I don't think I want to put the Lions or the Eagles above them, but maybe I'd move the Browns and Texans up to 6 and 7, have the Dolphins at 8, and put the Lions and Eagles at 9 and 10. But the top 5 teams in the NFL playoffs for 2024 are going to be the Kansas City Chiefs at number 5. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, we know what they're capable of. We know their postseason resume, so there's no reason to go over it. But the main question will be, not even the defense, that main question will be, how does Patrick Mahomes play in this game? How does Patrick Mahomes play in these playoffs with a Travis Kelce that had to get healthy? Still playing at home, but still has those young receivers in MVS, Kadarius Toney, Rashee Rice. One of those guys, I believe, will make a mistake in these playoffs, and it will be to the demise of the Kansas City Chiefs because we've seen it all year. That's why I have them at number 5. Number 4, the hottest team in the NFL right now, the Buffalo Bills at 11-6, surging back from 6-6, now at 11-6. Josh Allen shows everybody why he's still that dude. The defense has played solid. Rasul Douglas, I hate that they lost him in the game earlier on Sunday. I believe I heard that if I'm not mistaken. Been great since they brought him over in the trade deadline, forcing turnovers, forcing the most turnovers in the NFL since he came over from the trade deadline. And the Buffalo Bills get to play a playoff game at home. The Buffalo Bills do have to play the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. And, I think that could be an ugly one. I also think the Bills could come out and just absolutely blow them out of the water. Don't believe that will happen in a Mike Tomlin led, 10-win Steelers team as hard as they fought to get into the playoffs. But the Bills are looking very good. They're scary, and nobody should want to play them. At number 3, give me the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe the most loaded team in the NFL. They feel like they're on the same pedigree as the Ravens and the Niners in terms of just punching you in the effing mouth and not letting you get back up, putting the foot on your neck, stomping you in, having you on the ropes, and delivering the knockout blow because they can do it all. Micah Parsons led the league in pressures this year. Very impressive, over 100. The only player over 100 pressures on the year with 103. Dak Prescott having an MVP year, one of his best years also. CeeDee Lamb having an amazing year. Tony Pollard still being able to be solid. I think they'll bring Derrick Henry in the offseason because we know he's going to be a free agent, but the Cowboys can do it all, man. I said it earlier today. If their name was anything other than the Dallas Cowboys, I firmly believe that a lot more people would be rooting for them because if they didn't have the resume and the, kind of irony behind them, the parody behind them, I mean, they're loaded. They're able to play kind of like the Ravens defensively and offensively. They're able to play like the Niners defensively and offensively. Now they got, their ish kicked in by the Niners, of course, but I stay solid in the Cowboys at number 3. At number 2, give me the San Francisco 49ers. Clearly the second best team in the NFL. The Ravens handled them, which is why the Ravens will be 1, spoiler alert. The Niners at 2, though, we know what they're capable of with Shanahan, Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy playing very well this year. George Kittle leading the league in tight end receiving yards. Christian McCaffrey in the MVP discussion. Trent Williams on that offensive line. We know what the defense is, and we know that they can handle anybody in the league. And the only times that they had lost is when they were healthy, is when they were unhealthy or they beat themselves, i.e. turnovers from Brock Purdy or bad play calls from the coaching staff. And number 1, the Baltimore Ravens. The best record in the NFL, the number 1 seed in the AFC. Both of the top 2 teams here do have first-round buys. Lamar Jackson should win MVP this year or at least come very, very close to it. John Harbaugh and the Coach of the Year discussions, the best offense in the NFL, the best defense, if not the second best defense in the NFL, unrelenting, 13-win Ravens team. And I hope they go so far this year in order to be able to push on and win that Super Bowl. I was going to predict the entire NFL playoffs, but I'm not going to lie, y'all. I'm a little tired, and I definitely want to get off the show, as bad as that might sound. But we will do that in episode 61 on Friday. I'll be sure to go through the entire NFL playoffs again, from the Niners being the 1 seed in the NFC, the Ravens being the 1 seed in the NFC. We'll go through the Super Wild Card weekend. Won't be a big segment, but this was a packed show. I can literally feel my face and my throat drying out just from talking so much. So this has been episode 60 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate everybody for tapping into the show as we chopped up the college football playoff. We talked about Black Monday in the NFL, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, these playoff power rankings. Week 18, I think I already said that, week 18 of the NFL. Please, before we get out of here, y'all make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you may be watching. So hit the bell on YouTube as well so you never miss any type of content that we post out there. Of course, the QR code there in the corner of the screen will give you every bit of social media and podcast content. Also, at the NFL with AJL, hashtag the NFL with AJL. And as I always say, if you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. If you want to drop a super thanks or a super chat before you get out of here to donate to the show, appreciate that. Buy and Sell with AJL will always be your one-stop shop for your worldwide professional real estate needs. And as I always say, y'all, from the bottom of my heart, I came back about a year ago. I've been through a few podcasts, as you can see right here. That was what off season. That was when I did Petty Sports, sponsored by Pulse 880 Radio. To go through all that, to be gone for multiple stints, and to finally be on the cusp of making money and where I want this product and this business and this podcast to go. January is on track to be our best month on YouTube, which is really where I pride a lot of my, efforts, because YouTube will, pay me directly. It's the most forthcoming one, I feel like. But I say all that to say, you are the best damn fans in the world. The support is unwavering. And the fact that I was able to be gone, basically for all of December, and January is taking off like I never left. if it's not for you guys, I'm not able to be here today. Of course, the consistency and the hard work of me putting it into the show is everything too, but it's nothing without the support of the fans. I love y'all. I need y'all, and I